Hey guys, Mike here. So big week coming up this week, and I mean, one thing we're gonna look at is the seasonality that's coming into this, and you don't see the market following that seasonality, but I'll tell you why it's important, and I'll also let you listen to Jim Person about that right there and why it's important. Also, some stocks, especially some semiconductor stocks that could have big weeks upcoming. One of them is reporting earnings, which will probably set the tone for semiconductors, and a couple others as well. And why it's important to follow the future. It's something you're seeing that started in August, still continues right now. And again, if you don't watch futures, you don't know this, but I'll show you why, okay? Now, when it comes to the seasonality here, you can see we're not following it. The S&P is at the very top right there. It's just taken off. Now, of course, we got this Fed rate cut and everything. But you can see, I don't care if you're looking at the last 10 cycles, 5 cycles, really doesn't matter. Normally, we end up selling down, right? Especially going into end of September, early October, and then you have this huge rally that happens right there at the end of October, going November, December. And here's, what Jim has to say about this. And of course, remember, he follows the flows right here.
And then you have an incredibly slow time in markets in terms of 60% volume-weighted time during the last 2 months of the year, from mid-November to mid-January, actually.
So the action's very important there.
That's important. And then last of all, you have the biggest expirations of the year in December, always December and January. That has a massive amount of skew in it, much more than it usually has, significant amount of vol. That creates massive, that's that wall of worry people talk about. That's the actual supply and demand that drives that flow. So you're cutting time down on a massive amount of skew and volatility in the market that needs to force these Von and charm flows right as you have massive buyback January 1st in the market on the releveraging effect. The last 2 months of the year, you'd be insane to try and short this market in that window, in my opinion. You have a month here where, in theory, things could get a little weird
with election
until you get to the election. The election event vol itself is so big.
And do me a favor, guys, please hit that like, subscribe button. It helps push out the videos to others. Really appreciate your support on that. And for me, I don't even care if the market goes down, sideways, whatever it wants to do. I just really am looking to that like late October, November, December, because that's when a lot of money is usually made, okay? And all of a sudden, if you start getting, it continues this rally in September, October, then what happens in November, December? Do we still get the same effect? So it kind of throws those question marks around. So, again, October is a weird month, like he even said, going in November because you got the election this time, right? Normally, once the election happens, you get a quick pop down and then still just move back up, right? Everybody has to get their year-end bonuses and stuff. Now, when you look at we look at futures, obviously we got the trend line coming down here. We got a couple touch points. I'll look for the second one, but if you're a bull here, or even a bear, but if you're a bull, you need to get above around like 57.68 right there. If that can continue and you can close above that, especially getting above that trend line, then obviously this move up could absolutely continue. You got some daily fair value gaps right there, or hourly fair value gaps, that need to be mitigated. Right now, bulls are in charge, even though we're in this weak seasonality issue. And this next week is going to be interesting because it really is usually a very rough week in the market once you do a rate cut and you get that initial burst up. And so that's what I really want to see if that's the case. And then when you go to NQ, you're looking around 20.084 right there to sit there and get above to continue that move higher right there. And when this one's kind of wedged, right? Because you're sitting here in between these two shaded areas right there. We have talked about, you saw Saturday's video as well, where you're sitting on top right there in the area, which is obviously still resistance, right? Going back into July right there. And then below, we'll go ahead and zoom in. You can see clearly where you're sitting in an area which was resistance, could have turned in support this past week. And so that's what we're looking for, is where we got a nice little bounce from and just grind it up all day Friday right there. Even though we ended red, it was down at over 1% at one point in time. And so what a move back up right there. And again, I'm going to put a trend line here. We've had a couple touches. So again, if we break that trend line, we'll head back down the shade area, most likely continue to see if that's going to be support or not. And if we can break above in that area, and we might just go sideways. That's what I'm saying. You can see it, an idea where we just go sideways. But if you don't follow futures, at least look at a futures chart, because what's happening recently here is, if you look at what's going on since August 1st, and all that, you can see the majority of the moves up are happening in after hours, okay? The majority of moves down, you can see there right there, that's the intraday. That's when the market's actually open. And so, that's why you're seeing, I showed you the other day where you saw IWM go up over 3%, in after hours trading before 6:30 a.m., right? From like 8 p.m. to 6:30 a.m. SPY was up over 2%, and then you saw us either go down or sideways during regular hours for people. And you can see on the SPY right here, it's sitting there holding, it bounced off the recent all-time high, so we're going to see if that can hold right there above that ascending trend line. When you look at the Qs, it filled another gap that was to the downside, and so if this continues up, look for that other gap right up there between like 490, 492 right there. But right here at this level, that's going to be the key one to actually break, and that's going to be around 485.30. Okay, if we can get above that, I'm probably going to head up to that next gap up, and then a down, of course. What you're looking at is this trend line between 472, 472.85, somewhere in there, to hold as support and get a bounce right now. Okay, so if you're a bear, you want to break those and get some more downside and gain control. Right now, the bulls are in control. The Dow is interesting because, again, it's in this rising wedge it's been in forever. It was all about 2018, so it could absolutely continue to push up to that trend line. When I look at this more of a short-term trend line, though, like if I kind of draw this one over, right now, that's where we're at. You got the third touch, so this right here could reject down and start heading back down. That's what we got to figure out because it's been on fire, right? But the difference is, the reason why I say that, you can get a rejection right here, is again, because of what we got coming up seasonality-wise, but also the fact that if you look at Dow Jones Transportation, FedEx reported garbage earnings, and these have been moving hand in hand, and it had a big move down. Now, whether it's just a FedEx thing, whether, again, we don't get to hear UPS earnings for another 4 weeks, whether it's an Amazon problem they're having, because obviously Amazon, of course, has taken over the world, it seems like. But, that's what we got to figure out here. But if Dow Jones Transportation starts heading back down, it is going to drag the Dow down. That's just the way it's going to be. All right, so we'll keep an eye on that one as well. I know the Dow gets forgotten about. But again, it's not your grandfather's Dow anymore. Now, some moves that could be had here. MU is going to be one of them. You'll see where they report earnings on Wednesday. But if it gets through this trend line right here, you can see the big volume gap above right there, which goes all the way to like 108. And so, again, that could have a big move if they report good earnings here and set the tone for the semiconductors. And if they get on fire, obviously that can lead the Qs back up because the Qs are farther behind, right? They're kind of trying to play catch up here, and they could absolutely do that. When you look at the moving averages, though, obviously this one was, remember, this was at 160 back in June and has dropped all the way down to 90, okay? And so, again, we'll see if this one's bottom out, and we know how this works. This is technical. Can't predict the earnings, whether it's going to be good, bad, whatever, but you do have some kind of support down here. But when you look at this is a tale of two deals here, okay? Report decent earnings, and the market loves it, you can pop really well, right? If you report bad earnings, see that volume gap, then this thing could absolutely tank more. And so that's a big thing. But when you look at the confluence, which I love to see, not only are you setting on support, not only you have the volume gaps above, the trend line, it looks like it's trying to break out and build a base right there. You also have this trend line coming up that goes back to January 2023, which is bouncing off of. Okay, and it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This will be the 6th time it's bounced on this thing. And so you do have some, and I guarantee if I pull a fib up, this thing is well in a discount range. So we kind of see how this worked in the past. We'll see if it continues. SMCI is another one. Look at that volume gap. And so if it, it's already tried to break above, just consolidating right there near that trend line. So if this one, especially if MU starts to head up, this one get dragged up quickly. Remember, it's still a low float stock. They have not done the stock split yet that I'm aware of. And so again, this one can still move. Just like it moved down fast, it can move up fast. So again, watch those numbers to the side right there. You can see them. You get to see all those gaps right there to be filled. And this one moves fast in both directions, okay? And so far it's been holding up. Some people call it the inverse head and shoulders, the ugliest inverse head and shoulders I've ever seen in my life. Feel free to call it that if you want to. But again, just watch for this one. Also, as semiconductors start catching a bid this week, Intel's another semiconductor. This one right here just keeps getting lucky. And so it goes, oh, look, if you notice the big pop on Friday, oh, Qualcomm said they might, or they kind of had some interest in buying them, which of course we have no idea if that's the case or not until they actually make an offer. Then all of a sudden this come out today on Sunday, Apollo to offer a multi-billion-dollar investment in Intel. And so this one right here, which of course has been just destroyed when you look at it. Let's not forget, back in December 2023, this thing was sitting at $50. So it's been absolutely nuked. found support, and all of a sudden you get these news article comes out, you know, oh, well, Qualcomm might actually show interest in buying them, and then here's this investment coming out. So, you know, does it have room to move up? Absolutely. That big gap right there, it's going to hit the 50 very soon if this does move up. So don't be surprised if it gaps up tomorrow on that news. So 23.65 is where the 50's at. We'll see if it gets above that. Then you look at Nike. Now this right here, I discovered when I was looking at this thing, it loves the year-to-date anchor VWAP. That's what stopped it Friday. That's where it's at now. You can see multiple times where it's either resistance or support. So I look back at the last couple years. Again, every single stock respects something different, whether it's a moving average or something like this. But you can see it really respects its anchor VWAP, that year-to-date anchor VWAP. And so this is 2023. You can see multiple times where it was support, resistance. You go back 2022, look at this, it just followed it all the way down. Every single time it hit it, it was rejecting. And then finally gapped above it, made it support, and went on up. So we'll see if this one can get above, make that year-to-date anchor VWAP support, and continue this move up. It's had a nice move up off $70, by the way. And you see this on a lot of these beaten down names, right? And so Ulta, Nike, Lululemon, all the rest of them, okay? So no surprise there. But isn't this amazing? Can you imagine having a job where you make $104 million at the same time, though, the company you're running loses $40 billion in market value? Like, isn't that just insane? You know, if you were like a regional manager or something, or an area manager, they'd have been fired your butt, man. And you know he was so bad because, look, the stock, you know, the shareholders are so happy. The stock popped 7% off getting rid of the CEO. You know, and you could probably put a homeless person in there, they'd have been happy. But that's always amazing me what these executives get paid to do a bad job. I've served under a couple, so let me know if you have in the comments. Now, RK, which I normally never talk about this stock, you can look at it two different ways. One, it's in a rising wedge. Obviously, it's coming back down that wedge. Or you can sit there and go way back. So kind of weekly here, this thing is being wedged, right? And we're like a triangle formation here. And so it's at the top. We'll see if it heads back down to the bottom, or does this finally get a breakout? And this is what I was talking about. I mean, this is as risk on as it gets, right? The ARC stocks. So see if this one breaks out, because if it does break out, it can make a run to 52.75. If it gets above that, I mean, you pull the volume profiles, this stock, you know, again, all the ARC stocks were decimated. You know, that's where all your resistance is at. So once it gets above there, you're kind of like, oh, there's not a whole lot of resistance. And so let's just see. I don't know if it's going to happen this month, next month, or especially if we get into a run, end of October, November, that kind of stuff. You know, watch to see if it's going to be risk on now that they're starting to cut rates. Okay, that's going to be the more interesting one to start watching. Now you look at earnings, some important earnings this week. You're going to end up with a AutoZone, all right, big mover, KB Homes, and then we'll see Cintas. They're the ones that provide all the uniforms. You'll know if employment is actually waning or not. Microns, which could set the tone for semiconductors, and then of course Costco on Thursday, which, you know, I mean, the large funds really love Costco, so we'll see how they're going to report and see what they say about us shopping and everything. Then of course plenty of data coming out. You're going to have Monday flash manufacturing PMI, services PMI, then you'll come out with Tuesday CB consumer confidence, Richmond manufacturing index. Let's see if manufacturing keeps coming back. New home sales, crude oil inventories, final GDP, unemployment claims, durable goods, final GDP. And notice you'll have 13 Fed speakers, including Powell, by the way, and Janet Yellen also speaking. Then on Friday, you end up with core PCE, and then you're going to also have personal income, personal spending, and then the consumer Michigan confidence. And if you're looking on earnings, by the way, I mean, these are your moves, right? And so you can see some of these have bigger moves than others. I mean, look at Micron. Micron's sitting up there at over 10, like between 10 and 13%, which is a massive move for Micron, right? So if you're in a straight call or straight put, right, because it's a plus or minus deal, and it don't make it, you're pretty much going to get crushed, right? IV crushed. And so just keep that in mind. See, Costco don't have a very big move at all. And so some of these do, some of these don't. So just be careful how you play it when you play earnings. That's what they mean when they say IV crush. You got to get that expected move, okay? Sometimes you will, sometimes you won't. That's why you see that funny movement in after hours, okay? So anyway, let me know how you think the week's going to go. Please hit that like, subscribe button on your way out. Feel free to sign up for the memberships. Appreciate all of you who have. And you'll get 2 free videos a week. You'll get the daily news brief. And you end up getting the Discord if you want to do that kind of stuff. I still post a lot of it in Patreon no matter what, so you'll get it through email and stuff if you don't like to do a Discord. So anyway, hope you guys have a good one, and I'll see you tomorrow.